Something tells me this ghost right there was looking at me suspiciously, thinking about the fact that he must have been so impatient to able to go and see the actual grave. But don't worry though, we'll make our way to the cemetery and able to actually solve this problem out. Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake for the Nintendo Switch. And guess what everybody, only 1 week left until The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom will be releasing for the Nintendo Switch, which we'll discuss more about that if we somehow get this video started. So last time, we have essentially did manage to explore into the 4th dungeon in the game, which appears to be Angela's Tunnel, which, oh no, we actually did that particular dungeon no problem. In addition to that, we also did manage to claim ourselves the 4th instrument of Siren, which appears to be Surf Harp, and on top of that, we also did manage to claim ourselves the next important item that we somehow have. That's what appears to be the flippers, which naturally speaking though, we can now able to actually swim. So naturally though, we can now swim across specific waters now. So either way, and also we somehow managed able to uncover some more secrets, ranging from secret seashells and also the pieces of hearts as well. So generally speaking though, we've only got 1 piece of heart left until we're able to actually unlock ourselves the 12 hearts that we somehow managed able to, well, get it, I suppose. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on and head over straight onto the cemetery, because as far as I'm aware, we need to find the specific grave, and that way we can able to actually send a ghost right at the front of the grave itself. So either way though, so let's go and do this right now. Thankfully though, if you're trying to able to actually select the second song right there, this makes the entire traveling system much faster than ever before, especially about the fact that, like I said this before, you can now able to actually warp onto specific different warp spots this time around though. So because of that though, although I'm very grateful to know about the fact that this ghost was nowhere near as annoying as the forms of how it does in the original version, including the Game Boy Color version for the DX version. Now, the reason why I say this is because, thank goodness, we don't get interrupted by the forms of continuous text boxes, and usually the game pauses until when you skip the actual dialogue. So in here though, the actual dialogue plays itself, and as a result though, there's no interruptions while pausing. So because of that though, I'm very grateful this was improved over the likes of how it does in the original version, including DX counterparts on the Game Boy Color. So it looks like this particular ghost is now smiling, and as you can see, we actually got ourselves the second empty bottle. So this means about the fact that we can now able to actually decide able to capture the next ferry if we able to actually come across into the ferry, so we can able to save that up until whenever we get onto tougher battles, including tougher enemies to encounter with. So either way though, so once you're done with the forms of that particular ghost side quest right here, basically though, the owl decides to able to appear, and as a result, we now need to able to actually make our way to the next destination, which fundamentally speaking though, we can now able to actually head over to the 5th dungeon, because if you manage able to try to able to entering the 5th dungeon while you're still able to actually keep an eye on with the actual ghost itself, basically though, the ghost will be paranoid, and as a result though, you have to save that particular dungeon for later until you decide able to take care of this ghost first, because otherwise, then obviously though, it's about the fact that you're gonna have to able to spend most of your time trying to able to search for any other areas for that matter. So, but thankfully though, trying to get to the falls of that particular cemetery was actually a lot faster than I thought it was, because unlike the forms of how it does on the Game Boy / Game Boy Color versions, basically though, it can take a bit of some time to able to actually make our way to the cemetery with the ghost was actually behind us, because obviously though, it's about the fact that we can't choose any of those warp zones you somehow want to choose to go to. So anyways, the reason why I came in here though is because, well, according to the forms, the sensor was actually acting up, the secret seashell was there. So thankfully though, we did somehow manage able to find ourselves from here, because now, you know, we can now able to swim onto specific waters and all that stuff though. So at the very least, I fully appreciate about this, especially concerning for the fact that again, we couldn't do it normally though, because otherwise though, we will keep on losing a bit of your hearts. So either way though, that's as far as I can usually try to say about that, I guess. So anyway, so here we are back again with the Fonster Animal Village, and as you can see, Marin decides they're able to sing along continuously for this point in onwards. So I think, suffice to say, we can now able to actually start to be able to actually do some continuations for the item trading. So because of that though, like take this particular goat for instance, that basically though, sense about the fact that we did somehow claim ourselves that one of those item trading items that we somehow got, and as a result we can now able to give it to this goat right here, and something tells me we can now able to receive that particular letter right here. So we definitely need to able to go ahead and deliver this to one of those townspeople, or specifically one of those NPCs, somewhere near to the mysterious forest. So, thankfully though, again, it's not too far from here, especially because, you know, they added in some more warp points here and there, and I do realize about the fact that there was actually a secret seashell in here, but we're not going to go and try to obtain that just yet, because obviously though, we need to take care of the forms of some other side of things first. So either way, yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course here is the 19th of September today, in some cases in 2024 today. And as I mentioned this before, we've only got about 1 week left until The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom will be releasing for the Nintendo Switch, and I'm very curious to know of how the reviews is actually going to turn out to be, specifically until next week in particular. Sure, I'm still basically excited for it, especially concerning for the fact that will be a fresh and new Zelda experience, especially concerning for the fact that, well, from the top-down perspective, it's nothing new, as well as the forms of the art style is nothing new, although, in terms of gameplay mechanics though, it will be a lot more new experience, all things considered. So either way, so it looks like we've met up with the forms of this guy right here, and because of that, about the fact that we did somehow deliver the actual letter to him, and, well, conveniently enough though, much like the forms of how it does in the original version of the game, including the Game Boy Color version as well, we might able to actually see what's inside, and what you know, we actually got ourselves a familiar image, which appears to be Princess Peach, and relatively speaking, I was about the fact that it's more modernized compared to the forms of how it does it for the, a different design of a Peach photo or something like that. So either way though, so that's besides the point, and fundamentally speaking though, yes indeed, we need to get our broom, so just to ensure for the fact that we can still do some more item trading or what have you. So, in fact, no matter what though, I believe we are almost done when it comes to the forms of the item trading sequences, because, well, straight to the point though is about the fact that as soon as we're able to actually completely done with the forms of, I don't know, the 5th dungeon or something like that, including the optional dungeon though, which I'll discuss more about that during at some points later on though. So for now, let's go ahead and walk back into the animal village, so just in case about the fact that we can able to take care of some other stuff here and there. So anyway, there's also another thing worth mentioning for actually, is about the fact that one thing I totally forgot to mention about this, potentially speaking though, is about the fact that, well, since no matter what though, is about the fact that we've only got about a couple of days left until Nintendo Museum is about to be opened up in Japan. Well, apparently though, ever since about a past few days ago, someone did actually mention about the fact that Masahiro Sakurai, you know, with the creator of Super Smash Bros., alongside with the forms of Kid Icarus Uprising, as well as the some of those Kirby games in the 2000s or something like that. Well, fundamentally though, is about the fact that Sakurai did somehow manage able to experience the actual Nintendo Museum early. So yeah, that's actually kind of interesting to say the least, especially concerning for the fact that he did somehow manage able to visit there, and as a result though, he did manage able to visit there way earlier than the forms of how it does it in what was originally attempted on the 2nd of October. So yeah, that's actually kind of cool and everything. And again, I must admit though right away, I do apologize for my tongue twist in the end, folks, but that's just mainly because no matter what though, I'm pretty sure the temperature is actually going to get a little bit hotter again. Although not for long though, just because no matter what though, that autumn is now going to be a thing, and relatively speaking though, it's just about the fact that I believe we're now entering into the final stretch in terms of the forms of summer, before we move on to the forms of the majority of autumn, as well as winter throughout. Well, technically speaking though, that is. So either way, so since we somehow managed able to deliver the broom to this pretty cool woman, I'm not gonna lie for saying this, but relatively speaking though, we somehow got ourselves the fishing hook. So because of that though, all we need to do right now is about the fact that we can able to actually go ahead and do some fast travels and what have you, just to ensure for the fact that we can able to take care of other things worth noting for. So, anyways though, oh yeah, there's also another thing I completely forgot to mention about this actually though. We actually got ourselves our new first look of the films of this upcoming movie, which is of course Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul. And basically though, what happens though is about the fact that not only does it show us a brand new clip, but also about the fact that we're able to actually introduce into ourselves our brand new character, which by the looks of all that stuff though, this what appears to be Buddy forms of as some sort of a companion, which appears to be Buddy forms of Norbot, which because of how the fact that Norbot stands for like God and gnome, but actually act out as a robot kind of syndrome or something like that. So I'm very curious to know about the fact that how that's going to turn out. And also, relatively speaking, much like the forms of how it does it on several of UK commercials back then, well, at least ever since it during the forms have been around 5 years ago, potentially, though, when they somehow managed able to do the advertisement for DFS, which is usually it's like selling for like sofas and all that stuff for the UK commercials, that we able to actually get a chance to hear Wallace's different voice for the first time in the actual feature-length Wallace and Gromit film and stuff like that. Because, well, suffice to say though, that Wallace's voice is going to be Ben Whitehead, so just to ensure for the fact that, because obviously though Peter Sellers did somehow unfortunately passed away since 7 years ago, since in 2017, but at the very least though is about the fact that he did the voice of Wallace in Journey films of Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, so at least that's that. So anyway, so we meet up with the forms of this fisherman right here, and relatively speaking we can able to give him the actual fishing hook. Now this is important by the way, because otherwise though, if you really want to progress onto the 5th dungeon eventually, basically though, we're able to get ourselves our precious necklace. So potentially though, we need to give that to one of the mermaids, so potentially speaking that's essentially how we're going to be doing with when it comes to likely getting some of the actual progressioning for the sake of the forms of trying to able to actually access to, well, the 5th dungeon. So there's the 5th dungeon right down there. So potentially speaking, I was about the fact that we can't get into it at this point unless you need to talk to this mermaid right here and able to actually give her the necklace and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll give her the necklace there. And fundamentally though, she will able to actually give us the most important item in our hands, and that's what appears to be the scale. So fundamentally though, we can now able to actually go ahead and well, I have nothing else to say. Well, mind you about the fact that it has been about 2 days ago since we've last played this game for sure, because, well, straight to the point though is about the fact that it looks like about the fact that Maxie is almost going to be finishing up every single aspect in terms of Old Clockwork's mansion in Luigi's Mansion 2, so relatively speaking, that was about the fact that hopefully he will get a chance to able to actually completely done everything in terms of Old Clockwork's mansion before he moves on to the next mansion, potentially, until specifically though, probably until next week or something like that. But I suppose no matter what though is about the fact that it's probably best if we let Maxie will mention more about it, or potentially speaking if we let Pac-Man will mention more about it, assuming of course about the fact that Pac-Man will be definitely going to be coming back on playing through Pac-Man World for the Game Boy Advance, which by the way though is about the fact that he was not looking forward to going back onto that particular version of the game anyway, because, well, straight to the point though is about the fact that he's not a big fan of the fonts of this isometric view platforming, just like the fonts of how it does it on Sonic 3D Blast, or in some cases Sonic 3D, Flicky's Island, including with the forms of some other games as well, ranging from the likes of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross and all that stuff, because obviously that was about the fact that, gee, no wonder why that game has recently got delisted recently for app stores and stuff like that. Well, mind you about the fact that, straight to the point though, I decided able to actually no longer have that game now, mainly because about the fact that, well, I haven't touched upon that particular application since, because obviously though, unlike the forms of how it does it on the majority of the Kingdom Hearts games, potentially though, well, I suppose I should probably explain more about that and during whatever we get on to the next thing we want to do. That's what appears to be by the forms of Dampy's Dungeon Maker, because believe it or not though, it has been quite a while actually since we've last did something related to the forms of the Dungeon Maker, since, well, I would say since almost at the very beginning of the game, but now we can do some more stuff with the forms of the Dungeon Maker mode, so potentially speaking, we can now able to actually go ahead and not only decide able to get even more chambers, because after all, we somehow claim ourselves the first the chamber stones that we somehow got ever since about quite a while ago. And as you can see, we can now move on to the next task. So now I'm actually going to be edit this out though, because obviously though I will try to able to actually just to do like a lot of customization here and there. So yeah, I'll meet you guys back as soon as we're able to actually get onto the actual final results of this particular task I'm about to do. But anyway, if you managed able to go ahead and search for the exclamation marks, including the amiibo symbol, that actually reveals the forms of one of those dungeon pieces you can able to actually place and see. So because of that though, yeah, relatively speaking out, everything else will be pretty much accounted for. So yeah, I'll meet you guys back as soon as I get everything else sorted until, well. So anyways, as you can see though, it's about the fact that yes indeed, I managed able to actually place specific pieces of these chambers, so we can able to potentially try to able to go into some of those familiar rooms ever since enduring the forms of not only for Dungeon 1 again, but as well as Dungeon 2, and Dungeon 3, and of course Dungeon 4. So because of that though, but again though, it's about the fact that you can able to actually refight against with the exact same bosses as before, including certain sub-bosses as well, but relatively speaking though, it's entirely up to you if you decide able to make those dungeons that way. Although potentially speaking though, it's about the fact that I was originally trying to able to actually decide able to actually face off against with the first boss again, but I'm actually going to be going into a different approach right here, because obviously that was about the fact I just love refighting several bosses again, just to ensure for the fact that we can able to actually prove ourselves the fact that we've got more health than the forms of how it does it since the very beginning. And on top of all that stuff though, is about the fact that we can able to actually, well, fundamentally though, we can now able to actually use plenty of items to its disposal, ranging from, you know, bombs, bow and arrows, etc, etc. In fact, for this particular room right there, that we can't able to actually jump onto these specific obstacles here and there, so we need to figure something out, especially concerning for the fact that, well, hopefully that we'll get into that particular room, and so what if we explore into other rooms first, so just to ensure for the fact that we can able to actually decide able to actually complete the forms of specific tasks in order able to actually get yourselves those specific rewards if you do manage able to complete certain tasks. So either way though, as I was saying about the fact that the reason why that we no longer decide able to have Kingdom Hearts Yu Cross / Dark Road anymore, well, that's just mainly because, as I said before, I haven't touched upon those two games since, especially concerning for the fact that the actual online services for Yu Cross has already been ended since, I would say, since in 2022 or something like that, and also fundamentally speaking, I haven't touched upon Dark Road since, you know, quite a few years ago at this point. Well, that's just mainly because I found that game to be a snort fest to me though. Although, I will say that the art style looks interesting to say the least still, while looking back on it though. But I will have to admit it though right away, I honestly do prefer replaying through any other Kingdom Hearts games in the past, ranging from, obviously though, Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 3, as well as Kingdom Hearts 1, plenty amount of time so I can spend some time to relax, especially noticeable knowing any sort of knowledge with the forms of how RPG elements worked, and on top of that, I attempt able to replay through cinematic HD movies, specifically though, with Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, well, including with the forms of Recoded as well, despite the story in that game sucks, by the way, of Recoded, because it's just there, you know. So anyway though, so now we've got the Nightmare Key, so now we can able to face off against with that particular rematch boss encounter. So I can't tell you exactly who it is though, because obviously though, like I said before, I have to do a lot of emphasis on edits and also cut out those specific stuff, by the way, just to ensure for the fact that we don't want to make the actual video itself go by very lengthy in particular. So for instance, we can able to actually have a rematch against with the Genie based off from, well, Dungeon 2. So either way though, except except the fact that, well, obviously though, we can still able to actually see the actual in-game dialogue every time whenever you knock the actual bottle out. So either way though, suffice to say though, pretty much exactly what you expect. So anyway, also, about the fact that one thing I did not actually realize about the fact that when it comes to Super Mario Party Jamboree though, well, first of all, is about the fact that, well, we've only got about exactly 4 weeks left now until Super Mario Party Jamboree is going to be releasing. Specifically though, 28 days left until that game is going to be releasing. In addition to that though, is about the fact that we also got about, I won't classify for saying, only like, I don't know, 34 or 36 for that matter. I would classify for saying 36 days left actually, until Sonic X Shadow Generations will be releasing during that time, especially concerning for the fact that we've also got about next week until the Tokyo Game Show is about to happen, when it comes to the forms of certain video game companies and all that stuff, which I'm still very curious to know of what these specific games will be revealed. Well, I'm sure about the fact that I'm pretty sure that technically Maxi has sort of mentions about that, but I suppose he'll talk more about that probably at some point until tomorrow, because also during around that time is about the fact that until tomorrow that iPhone 16 alongside with iPhone 16 Plus alongside with the forms of iPhone 16 Pro, iPhone 16 Pro Max, as well as the forms of Apple Watch Series 2, oh no, sorry, Series 10 for that matter. I keep thinking about the other model because, well, there was also Apple Watch Ultra 2, and there was also AirPods 4, AirPods Max, and as far as I can try to say about it, that all of those products are going to be releasing until tomorrow, which is insane if you ask me. So anyway, so now we're done with the forms of one of those tasks right here. So now we can move on to the next task, where basically though we have to replace specific stairs. So okay, so yet again I did manage to be able to did the actual customization off screen, by the way, yet again. So no matter what though, I'm pretty sure about the fact that this entire process goes by a lot faster than I was expecting. Well, sometimes though it's about the fact that if you really want to get out of your way to able to actually go for a full 100% completion, well, best assured for this point folks is about the fact that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on dungeon making sometimes, especially if you really want to able to try to complete any other tasks for that matter until you've decided able to actually get yourselves a nice little rewards and all that stuff. Well, suffice to say though, is about the fact I'm pretty sure about the fact that we've almost done in terms of level 1 when it comes to dungeon making tasks. So yeah, as you can see about the fact that in order able to actually progress onto the other part of the dungeon, well, best assured about the fact that we have to place one of those dungeon rooms that features stairs on it. So just to ensure for the fact that you can able to actually get yourselves an interesting transition between top-down 3D perspective or all the way up to the 2D side-scrolling bits. So either way. Oh really? Only one ruby? That seems pretty worthless. So, oh by the way, this is one of those rooms, by the way, that in order able to actually unlock one of those specific rooms, which appears to be the Great Fairy Room, basically though you have to scan your amiibo in order able to actually unlock that particular chamber, by the way. So yeah, I just want to classify that. Also, I just realized about something is about the fact that I can't even believe by saying this is about the fact that since we're on 2024 already, basically though is about the fact I just realized that this game, as far as the game I'm playing through right now, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake on the Nintendo Switch, suffice to say though is about the fact that until tomorrow, that game is going to be 5 years old probably until tomorrow, I'm guessing. So because of that though, gee, time flies, you know? Especially concerning for the fact that so far I'm, you know, really enjoying playing for this game pretty much. Especially concerning for the fact that, like I stated this before, they fixed a lot of issues that I have found from the likes of not only for the Game Boy original release, but as well as the Game Boy Color re-release as well, which I'm super appreciative about this kind of stuff though, especially it makes the entire game a lot more easy to able to digest into. So either way, so yet again we got ourselves a nightmare key, so now we can able to proceed into yet another boss rematch encounter. So, and it may look like about the fact that we're about to face off against with the anglerfish again, since in what else? In Dungeon 4. So, Also, you probably already noticed about something is about the fact that every time when if you do manage to place one of those specific boss rooms, usually anglerfish for instance, basically though there's no door side anywhere before you're able to actually go downstairs and able to actually face off against with the anglerfish. My guess is about the fact that there was no plot MacGuffin items, which is to be more specifically the instruments of sirens. So yeah, that's as far as I can usually try to say about this, I guess. So, but as you can tell about the fact that the anglerfish, as you can tell, he does have a different attacks and all that. So for instance, it's about the fact that he did indeed manage to able to actually cause the actual specific blocks able to actually come down if he managed able to crash into a wall or something. So, but apart from those side things though, he still is pathetically easy. Well, apart from the fact that he's actually more of a challenge this time around though, as I said this before, since on Tuesday. So either way, so now we've actually done with this particular task right here. So I believe we're about to do one more, just in case about the fact that we can able to actually did indeed complete the forms of the level 1 dungeon maker tasks and stuff like that. So because of that though, I just want to get this out of the way before we head over to the forms of the next thing we're about to be dealing with. Well, suffice to say, it's about the fact that before we head over to the 5th dungeon, which as to be expected, we're about to make our way into at some point, I'm actually going to be tackling through the colored dungeon, which as a result, I'll explain more of that in a moment. Okay, so I did manage to place these specific dungeon pieces again, but this time as you can see we need to able to fill up the entire shape as a heart. So because of that though, something tells me about the fact that we can probably able to expect to get something rewarding based off from hearts or something like that. I think my guess is it's probably be the piece of heart or something, in addition to I don't know, a secret seashell or something like that. Well, I suppose we'll find out more about it as soon as we're able to actually just to go ahead and deal with this particular 4th run of this particular dungeon maker mode. So suffice to say though is about the fact that there's nothing else I can really say about it, apart from the fact that we can able to actually well, realize about this is about the fact that when it comes to Super Mario Party Jamboree, at least as far as I'm aware, that generally speaking that when I see the actual gameplay footage of it so far, before the actual game decides to release, that yes indeed, much like the forms of how it does it on Mario Party Superstars, that if you come across into those specific event spaces, basically those about the fact that you can able to actually fast forward. And this time around though, rather than just holding down the A button, so I'm pretty sure you now need to hold down the L button or the R button or the SL or SR buttons if you use the Joy-Cons themselves. But relatively speaking, I was just about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I was just about the fact that that's as far as I can try to say about that particular you know, fast forward feature. If you come across into the exact same board events again, if you manage to able to see that particular scene multiple times. In addition to that though, speaking of the event space, that unlike the forms of how it does it on not only Super Mario Party, but as well as Mario Party Superstars, that if you land on the event spaces, basically though it always says event spaces, alongside with the forms of the space right next to it. However though, in Super Mario Party Jamboree, it does things a lot differently this time around, because if you do manage to land on that particular event space, it actually shows the exclamation mark on top of your character's head. So that seems interesting, especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously though is about the fact that I get the strong sense of feeling about the fact that the actual HUD or the UI was actually a lot different this time around compared to the forms of how it does it in not only Super Mario Party, but as well as Mario Party Superstars. So, but still, it's incredible about the fact that we are about to be getting not 1, but 3 different Mario Party games, specifically though, brand new Mario Party games to be released on the Nintendo Switch. That could be also applied to the forms of the Nintendo 3DS, along with Nintendo 64, but we were not enough to able to actually catch up to the most amount compared to the GameCube though, because the Nintendo GameCube did somehow manage to able to receive 4 Mario Party games, ranging from Mario Party 4, 5, 6, and 7, although I don't usually count Mario Party E or Mario Party Advance because they are both on the Game Boy Advance, technically speaking, especially you can able to actually play those 2 games on the Game Boy Player for the GameCube, but that's besides the point. So, anyways though, Speaking of which though, is about the fact that yes indeed, much like the forms of how it does it on Super Mario Party, specifically in River Survival mode, that Super Mario Party Jamboree will decide able to bring back the ranking system where it comes to likely trying to able to do some cooperative mini games. However though, is about the fact that unlike the forms of how it does it on Super Mario Party, usually for the co-op mini games only goes up to 4 players. In Super Mario Party Jamboree this time around though, it actually goes up to 8 players, because the forms of specific mini games can only be played on the forms of Bowser's Kaboom Squad mode, at least as far as I'm concerned anyway. So because of that though, now I'm pretty sure about the fact that depending on how well you did on those specific co-op mini games, basically though you can able to actually choose whatever items you want to able to actually decide to choose. Like, as far as I did see on the footage, they did show us the forms of the banana peels, alongside with the forms of the boost panel, you know, the similar ones as you saw from the likes of Super Mario 3D World, and there was also the familiar heart item, where it's kind of thinking about it, the design is almost is almost inspired by the Super Mario Odyssey Life Up hearts, although except the fact that they don't have eyes or a crown on top of it this time around. So it's kind of unfortunate, but it knows what it is, I guess. Also, I just realized about something, is about the fact that, well, suffice to say though, remember how the fact that we somehow meet again with Dumpy? Well, suffice to say, when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, it may look like that Dumpy will make its return. So, yeah, that's a bit of a cool coincidence about the fact that the reason why I've decided to do this Let's Play in the first place. Because, you know, similar art style, and also Dumpy is going to make its return. In addition to that, though, is about the fact that, well, it's going to be top-down perspective and all that stuff. So, anyway, so we've met again with the forms of the Slime Eye ever since in Key Cavern. So, hopefully, though, we won't have too much trouble with this time around, though. Unlike the forms of how it does on the... Oh, jeez Louise. I totally forgot about the forms of this particular getting cornered, stuff like that. So... Okay, so hopefully though about the fact that... Oh, jeez Louise. Okay, there we go. So one of them is down. Now we need to take care of the other one. So hopefully though we can pretty much guarantee about the fact that, well, we will take a break on Journey Balls of in the Dungeon Maker for a while, until we're able to actually access to other dungeons first, including the optional one, which obviously though is about the fact that I can usually decide able to say this right now. The next dungeon I'm about to tackle through is the color dungeon. So because of that though, yeah, I'll talk more about that and join at some point on Tuesday perhaps. So yeah, yes indeed, we've got ourselves not only the secret seashell, but as well as the piece of heart as well. So yeah, I suppose the final thing I want to discuss upon is that, yes indeed, much like the forms of how it does it on most recent Zelda games during that time, that Echoes of Wisdom will indeed able to contain 2 different difficulties. There's normal and hero mode. So yeah, I'll talk more about that in a later time. So with that being said, folks, is that we get endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake for the Nintendo Switch. And that's what appears to be about the fact that we're going into the optional dungeon called the Color Dungeon. So yeah, this should be a lot more funner. So I'll see you guys until on next Tuesday. Later, fellas.